how will the private players now be impacted from May 1st when the Indian government is going to require participation of private companies in speeding up the process of vaccinations?
Yeah, so just continuing from the Dr. Gilada's thoughts, I think what he said is right. The government centers would probably have no choice given to people who come to vaccinate, but the private centers may offer them a choice. And as the weeks go by, if we have more players, more candidates for vaccine coming in, we would probably have more candidates which more vaccines available for common people to take up. Now, I think the private sector and the government sector has been actually shoulder to shoulder in the entire fight with Corona, COVID-19 since the start of the pandemic, and vaccination drive is no different. What we probably are going to see is that private players would need to work out how are they going to procure the vaccine. Whether the vaccine is going to be procured by the states and then distributed, or the private players are going to be able to talk with the manufacturers and get that. I think as of now, what I can say is that we will be dependent on the state government and the central government to deliver the vaccine. As the process becomes a little bit more streamlined, you heard that there is a vaccine shortage on the ground. We actually don't know whether we'll be able to start up with the vaccination program in full swing or not. That question needs to be answered. But what's most important, Rhythm, is that it will require micro-planning, whether it's private sector or public sector. Micro-planning will be required because this is the age group, 18 and above, who probably don't have that much of vaccine hesitancy. There may be hesitancy, but the sheer number is so large that you will actually find a lot of people wanting to come and take vaccine. So it would be good to have a policy or a strategy to divide time so that particular people can come up for particular times to take up vaccine. What I'm trying to hint is that there are still people above 60 who haven't had their second dose. There are still people above 45 who haven't had their first dose or second dose. We don't want old people to be standing in the same queue as the young 18-year-olds or 20-year-olds. So we will have to have a strategy to divide all of this so that there is no crowding, and at the same time, the vaccination drives run smoothly. Because previous experience has been that if crowding happens, vaccination centers actually behave like a super spreader event. We want to avoid that at any cost.
Yes, very, very important point. Something, Dr. Pandit, that will have to be very closely monitored by the government, especially when the tsunami second wave is here. I think that's something that needs to be paid note to. Also, I'm going to ask that question also to Dr. Sanjeev Bagai. What are the precautions that need to be taken to anyone who's going, Dr. Bagai, to a center? And also, how are the current rates that have been set up by Bharat Biotech and SSI mean for the Aam Aadmi? Bharat Biotech is charging 600 to a government hospital, 1200 to private hospitals. SSI is saying 400 to the government hospitals, while they're asking for 600 for Covishield. What does this mean for the Aam Aadmi?
Good evening, everyone. So let me be as ruthlessly honest.
Good evening, sir.
The first point is the present supplies which are envisaged to be coming out to fulfill the demands. According to me, we'll need much more than 2 platforms of vaccine. The minimum of 3 or 4 or even up to 5, and very quickly. So obviously it's a question of a gap between how much production is there and what is the demand. Point number 2 is if the stronger and quicker and tighter we hold on to the vaccine, lesser will be the impact of the vaccine. We have to liberalize it. We have to use every private player to vaccinate. Please understand that 75% of the Indian healthcare is private, and out of that 75%, more than half of it is family physicians and GPs. You have to not reinvent the wheels, but use the same infrastructure and the same magnet to have a greater population with greater catchment areas. Now, for that to be done, you have to use it like a routine immunization, but with the safety precautions of observation for 20 minutes, 30 minutes post-vaccination. Can you ever imagine someone walking in to get a hepatitis A or an influenza shot, first going through a portal, then standing in the line, getting registration done, then waiting again in a hospital, government or private? It's going to become tedious, and maybe we will falter. Maybe this is a self-stripping exercise. You have to liberalize it, keep the data monitoring, and keep the safety protocols. With regards, so that I'm absolutely crystal clear on this, unless and until we don't involve every medical player to give the vaccine, it will become counterproductive. We will not reach the target. The longer we delay, greater will be the chance that the mutations will become less effective against the vaccine. So it is in our interest that we do it as quickly as possible. It is important to understand that the vaccine is the only public health interventional tool, the strongest tool. With regards to costing, just 30 seconds more. With regards to costing, I'm also a very firm believer that it should be a uniform costing between the states and the central. And point number two, it should be equitable and affordable. 1,200 rupees versus 600 rupees is bringing a huge disparity. If a family of four is going and twice, that means they'll be spending upwards of 6,000 rupees, which may hurt them. And in the end, what I would like to say in this segment as a summary point is that the private players' costing in terms of administrative costs and the injectable cost and the registration and the consultancy must be fixed. It should not be 1,200 plus the private players' fee. We don't want to burden the patients who are coming because this is a pandemic, an extraordinary situation.